Well, I hate to quote Jim Cramer, but Jim Cramer has a great quote, there's always a bull market somewhere. So there are, even if you just look at publicly traded equities, there are probably 100,000 stocks around the globe that are publicly traded. And there are probably several thousand of them, or maybe at least several hundred of them, that are in one way or another trading significantly below intrinsic value. And so in many ways it's a treasure hunt, or like Munger would say, why should it be easy to get rich? But I think that if one were intensely focused on that, one would get there. So I'll just give you a story from Warren Buffett's childhood when he was a teenager. So when he was a teenager in Omaha, he used to go to the horse racetrack. It was called the Ak-Sar-Ben racetrack. It's Nebraska spelled backwards. And he'd go after all the races had finished, and he'd collect all the tickets that people had left on the ground, which were all the losing tickets. And he'd collect them all, and then he'd carefully go through each one to see if some drunk had discarded a winning ticket. And once in a while, he'd usually find 1, 2, 3, or a few tickets that were actual winning tickets that had been tossed. And then because he was underage, he sent his Aunt Alice to the window to collect. And then, he put that money away, and the next Sunday he was again there to collect his winning tickets. And so those were free lunches, right? I mean, there was some effort involved, but for a kid, it was a free lunch, if you will. And when he was about 21 years old, Buffett went through something known as the Moody's Manual. So these Moody's Manuals covered a number of different industries. They were about 20,000 pages in all, and they came out every year. So he said that in 1951, he went through all 20,000 pages in these manuals twice, right? So in a year, let's say 2,000 working hours, probably for Warren 4,000 working hours, he'd gone through 20,000 pages now, or 40,000 pages. Now, if you're going through 40,000 pages, how many pages is that per day? If you have, let's say you had 400 days, so what would it be, like 1,000? No, it'd be 100 pages a day, right? It'd be approximately 100 pages a day. Not that much, you can do it, 100 pages is not that much. And what he was doing, even 100 pages a day, you're going pretty fast. And he was going fast. So he was going through those 100 pages a day the exact same way he went through the Ak-Sar-Ben tickets. You can take the kid out of Ak-Sar-Ben, you cannot take Ak-Sar-Ben out of the kid. Okay? So what was he looking for? Well, so for example, he found, I think he was saying page 1433, Western Insurance. 2 years back, they made $22 a share. And then last year, they made $29 a share. And the stock was between 3 and 13 was the range for the last 52 weeks. And they had $135 in book value. Okay? So for him, Western Insurance was identical to the Ak-Sar-Ben ticket that the drunk had tossed. It shouldn't be there, right? Western Insurance should not be trading at a range of 3 to 13. And then he said he saw Western Insurance, he stopped. He's flipping pages, stops, pulls up the AM Best manual, which is the insurance manual for insurance companies, looks at it, he says there's nothing wrong with it. Talked to a couple of insurance brokers, they said the company's fine. He puts some money into Western Insurance. He said 10 pages later, he finds another insurance, North American something, surety or casualty or something. Again, very similar numbers and such. And then he says the book really got hot and heavy towards the end. You know, there were all these exciting things going on. And in 2011, so this was 1951, right? And then the Ak-Sar-Ban escapades were taking place probably around 1943 or something, when he was 13, 14 years old. 2011, my friend Guy Spier and I were visiting Warren, and we were in his office, in his private office. And I noticed there was a book on his desk, and it was called the Japan Company Handbook. And I was very familiar with the Japan Company Handbook because at that time, Guy Spier and I were leafing through that book, looking for Japanese nets, very cheap Japanese stocks. The problem is that when you find, and it's in English, which is great, when you find those stocks, you'd be lucky to get $500,000 into it, or $100,000 into it. I mean, these are small, thinly traded Japanese companies. But the thing is, the Japanese company handbook was about 600 pages, 2 stocks per page. So I see it on his desk, and I said, Warren, what are you doing fooling around with the Japan Company Handbook? I mean, Berkshire Hathaway, you're deploying hundreds of billions of dollars. There's nothing in that book that's going to help Berkshire Hathaway, okay? Because this is Mickey Mouse stuff. And so, of course, he's a poker player. His expression doesn't give away anything. So then I picked up the book, and I took it to some pages which I knew the stocks that I had found. I said, Warren, let me make this faster for you. You know, here's some Mayoshi Corp, whatever else. And without asking him, I dog-eared a bunch of his pages in his book, mutilated his book, and gave it back to him. And again, poker face, he doesn't, say anything. And but what he was doing is he was probably going through that more for his personal account, and more importantly, the reason he was going through it, because you can't get Ak-Sar-Ban out of the kid. He still loves the treasure hunt. Okay, so he can't put money into those things, but he loves the hunt. In 2006, he told MBA students he did the same thing with a booklet someone sent him. Citicorp had put this booklet together of Korean stocks, and he found he made 20 investments off of companies in that book. On one Sunday afternoon, he put 100 million of his personal funds into 20 stocks from that book. And so, for example, one of the companies he invested in was Daehan Flour. Daehan Flour in Korea is got 1/4 of the flour market. You know, people have to eat, and it was trading for 35,000 won. The last 3 years' earnings were like between 18 and 25,000 won, and it had 100,000 won in cash and investments and no debt. So it's at 1/3 of liquidation value if there's no business. And on top of that, there's a business, right? And so coming back to your question about what do I do with 5,000? Well, quite frankly, the 5,000 is a huge advantage. Buffett has a disadvantage at 400 billion. That's a problem. 5,000 is not a problem. So the question is, are you willing to be like the kid at Ak-Sar-Ban? Are you willing to flip through 40,000 pages looking at 6 numbers per page to see whether you should flip the page or wait? And so with 100,000 stocks in the world and auction-driven markets, there are always mispriced securities. And not only are they mispriced, in some cases they are extremely mispriced. 2 years back, someone sent me a stock tip. And usually when I come into work, one of the good things is that every day when I come into work, usually my assistants hand me a folder, and there are usually 2 or 3 stock tips in there. Okay, it's great. My email address, mp@pabraifunds.com. Please feel free. Okay, so every day I come into work, I look at my my folder, and there they are, 2 or 3 stocks I've never heard of that people have sent in. And I just look at 2 numbers. And then it goes in the garbage. But before I send the garbage, thanks a lot, appreciate your sending it. But I look at 2 numbers. I look at the price the stock is trading at, which is normally mentioned in there, and the price the person is saying it should be trading at, right? If those 2 numbers are not apart by at least a factor of 5 or 10, I'm done. So, unfortunately, every day when I come in, this is what happens. Some guy has sent me a 15-page elegant write-up, immaculately done, a lot of charts, etc. I'm just looking for these 2 numbers. The stock's at 13, and after 10 pages, it says it's worth 18. What do you think I do, Sanjay? Thank you very much, warm regards. But don't let that dissuade you. All I want to say to you, please don't send it to me unless it's at least a 5x, and preferably a 10x, and ideally a 100x delta between those 2 numbers. Because we need to get to technical, right? But the thing is, almost exactly 2 years ago, some person I'd never interacted with sent this 10-page, very well-written report. I looked at the 2 numbers. The 2 numbers were apart by a 10x. I said, lo and behold, someone has sent this in, right? I said, this is great. So I have a Acorns easy chair in my office. Lynn knows my office, the Acorns. I left my desk. I went to my Acorns easy chair, put my feet up, and started to read the report. Because now I was into an orgasmic experience. I wanted to make sure I fully enjoy the experience. And I read the report, and I couldn't find anything wrong with it. I mean, everything, I'd never heard of this company, but assuming everything he was saying was accurate, because I didn't know whether it was accurate or not, all I knew was he was describing some company and blah, blah, whatever else, and then there was this factor of 10 delta. I said, okay, the fairy tale looks awesome. Now let's see if the fairy tale is true. So all I did was I spent about 2 hours just checking every number. I just opened up Google Finance and opened up a few other websites, and I just went through the company's website, and I just checked, okay, he's saying debt is so much, is the debt so much? It's non-recourse, is it non-recourse, blah, blah, blah. I just went through the checks, and after 2 hours I looked and said, I'm done. Everything is there, there's nothing more to do. And I put 20 million of Pabrai funds into the company. It's now at, I think, north of 50 million. And I think we probably will get 100, maybe north of 100, might even get 200 million out of it. We'll see. And the guy who sent it, I still haven't met him. I did thank him. And I said, please keep them coming. And I haven't seen anything else from him, but if I see something from him, I'll definitely go back to my Acorns chair to read what else he has to say. So the bottom line is that if one were to be unreasonable and say, I only want 10 baggers or 5 baggers or whatever else, they're going to show up. As long as you're willing to be patient and be unreasonable about it. But the thing is, what it takes the intensity of the person at Aksardhan. That's a very unusual teenager who's doing that. And that's a very unusual 21-year-old who's doing that. I don't know any investment analysts who pound through 40,000 pages. Maybe they do, but I don't know them. And who are going through with the intensity that Buffett went through. And one of the things is that Einstein used to say that compounding is the 8th wonder of the world. And the reason he said that is that, so Sanjay, if you have $1,000 and you find one of these 5 baggers, let's say even every 10 years, right? And you start at the age of 20, and you're dead at the age of 80, for example. So you got 6 decades, right? every decade, your money multiplies 5x. So 5,000 becomes 25,000 when you're 30. It becomes 125,000 when you're 40. And it becomes 625,000 when you're 50. It becomes a little over 3 million when you're 60. It becomes 15 million when you're 70. And you got 75 million when you're 80 and dead. And that's out of $1,000 or $5,000, right? So we don't need, this is the magic of compounding, is can you find one 5-bagger every 10 years? You've got, at least 20,000 hours in 10 years if you just work 40 hours a week to find one. One should be able to find one. So that's the name of the game.